Hi, I'm Nathan Johnson, host of Veterans Voices. On Monday, December 18th, Veterans Voices was live on stage at the California Theater in Pittsburgh. Many of you joined us there. Many of you also watched from home. And what you know is we experienced a minor audio technical difficulty. What we have for you today is an edited version that jumps into the conversation where the audio has returned. Watch now as we just begin the conversation about how the veteran population is changing. It's becoming smaller, mostly because military service itself is no longer an obligation. It's an opportunity, and so people are not drafted, which I would imagine maybe a lot of people during your time were, Murph.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, Jeff, yeah, you want me to pull Jeff back?
You're right, I was drafted.
You were drafted, okay, so today's military is getting smaller, and so then our veteran population is getting smaller.
It is getting smaller, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, it is a bad thing in that many of the members of the military who are currently serving are having to serve again in combat overseas because we don't have enough people in the military to actually fill those roles on an ongoing basis. So it's both a plus and a minus that we have that. I would go back to what you were saying earlier about veterans in the community. Most people are pretty blissfully unaware of who and what a veteran is. Why? They don't really have contact. If they're not a member of the family or a close friend, they really don't know veterans. So they might know a name from their high school class, but they don't know them. And what I see in a service organization for veterans is that what veterans are beyond their service is everything that everybody else is in the community. They are the coaches, they are the engineers, the teachers, they are the council members, the planning commissioners, the judges, the lawyers. They are a cross-section of community that is well represented. But for the most part, if you ask these people whether or not they're a veteran, or let me put it differently, if you knew them, you would be surprised to find out that they were a veteran. People who had known me for years in Orinda didn't know that I was a veteran until they saw me carry the flag in the 4th of July parade. Then they connected the dots. So what veterans are after they return is they're productive members of society who have one additional characteristic, which is a desire to be of service not only to their community, but to their fellow veterans.
And I'm glad you mentioned the families as well, because I think it's also extending to the families. It's a life of service that people really become acclimatized to and want to continue doing to feel part of society.
Wendy, let me pull you into this because you mentioned that sometimes people may not recognize someone as a veteran because you're right, we are very much a part of the fabric of society. We're not this subpopulation that exists and sits at veterans halls. We are involved, we have families, we have jobs. And Wendy, you served in the military, you're a veteran, and I think that the presence of women veterans, sometimes maybe some of us miss that visual. When we're thinking of who is the veteran today, we miss that visual of who the woman veteran is today. Can you give us a little bit about that?
Certainly. I am an Air Force veteran, and women have always played a role in the military, and oftentimes it's not depicted in the media, so we don't really think of that. A lot of people think of veterans as male, and the media, I think, tries to, movies, things of that nature, they try to insert women into them, but not necessarily the real struggles that they endure. I think women, like all transitioning service members, come back and they really just want to assimilate into society and have value and worth. And so therefore, they're not very outspoken about being a veteran. It's very odd to walk up to a female veteran and for her just to say, I am a veteran. That's kind of learned behavior because it almost has a stigma to it. And we're trying to, as a society, we need to try and change that perception. And I think more and more female veterans that would be spokesperson would speak out for those service members or those female veterans. I think we would see more female veterans be more adept to say, or more equipped to say, hey, I am a veteran and this is what I need. We just need to have more people that can bridge that gap.
Absolutely. And Luis, you may see, we have just a few seconds here, you may see more of maybe the role of women veterans, maybe at UC Berkeley, taking advantage of their GI Bill and going to school.
So, with the student population on campus, there's still, work to be done in that regard. We definitely need more female veteran representation at UC Berkeley, and then I think really across the board of all military and veteran organizations. I think one thing that was brought up earlier, though, was the declining veteran population. So one thing that just comes up to mind for me is with that declining population and the rest of the greater American population, the impact or people who are able to know a veteran or interact with veterans. So I think there may be a danger there of the greater American population being less empathetic to the veteran issues and struggles.
And we're losing our older veterans. The biggest reason for our decline in veteran population is because the World War II veterans are in their 90s, and now the Korea and Vietnam are up in their 60s and 70s, and it's just attrition is part of it. I know that in California here, we're down to about 1.8 million veterans now from the 2 million we were just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I think Luis's point is perfect. Here in the Bay Area, today's veteran is certainly fewer and fewer because of the lack of military bases that used to exist several decades ago. And so we don't even have a military presence, and we have even a smaller veteran presence. So we've only cracked the ice here, folks, and this is just to get the conversation going. And again, I want to invite our audience to participate. I want to invite everyone who is watching the show to participate in tonight's conversation. Grab the microphone or send us a message on Facebook Live.
Next up is Vet on the Street continued. This time we are hearing from veteran and civilian filmmakers about their experiences in creating short films and documentaries focused on veteran issues.
Hello everyone, I'm here with Eddie Ramirez, the festival founder of the San Francisco Veterans Film Festival. Did I say that right?
You said that right.
Good. So how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for 6 years now.
What inspired you to do it?
Well, I served 22 years in the Air Force, and when I worked at the VA Medical Center, one of the things that I found out that there's a big disconnect between the veterans and the military community, the veterans and the civilian population. I was appointed the Minority Veteran Program Coordinator, and I did a lot of outreach. So one of the things that I saw that there needs to be education of what our veterans go through. So that kind of got me going, and next thing you know, I'm doing a film at the VA, and now we're in our 6th year of the film festival.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you a director, filmmaker yourself? Or?
No, I'm just a veteran and college student, but no, I've never had any film background. I've shot pictures, but never did film festivals.
It's been an amazing experience. I've met some of the most incredible people I've ever met are veterans because they just believe in service. And they don't go in, it's not like they want to go in and kill people. They want to actually serve their country, and they get out, and they do feel a bit betrayed that civilians don't ask. They just say, thank you for your service, but it's superficial. They don't ask them what their experience is. What happened to you? We don't know how to speak to our veterans anymore in a way that after World War II, you and I would have served. We would have had this shorthand. Everybody was in it together. It's not that way anymore.
What do you think veterans can do to come together? I mean, it's not always easy to go, you know what, I want to be among other veterans. So what would you say to veterans who are maybe reluctant to go out and find community to do so?
Well, I think peer-to-peer support is really important. So it's finding veteran service organizations in your community so you can develop a veteran community. And I think, it's not easy to go out and meet people, but once you do, it's really rewarding. And I think you just got to get veterans out. And I think the military spouses can help do that too and create communities, not just for the veteran, the military spouse suffers as well.
We're not trained to be vulnerable. We're trained to be completely opposite of that. We're supposed to be these impenetrable fortresses, ass-kicking machines that don't feel pain, don't cry, don't show emotion, show no mercy unless, you're there for that. And then coming out of that programming is pretty hard to do. So, yeah.
How has your transition been coming home?
It's a tough transition. I'm doing well now. I work in a corporation and have a manager, I have a team, but it's taken a while to get to that point. Communication's different. What it means to be a team is a little bit different. How to perform a job or a mission is different. So there's a lot of challenges in that transition. So I think getting the word out with events like this and providing support to transitioning veterans is very, very important. And I'm happy to take part.
Welcome back. Do we have some comments from the audience we'd like to take at this time?
Yes, we do.
Let's have it.
Hi, I'm Ben Johnson, and I'm part of the DAV Chapter 154 here in Pittsburgh. I'm the former mayor of this city and a councilman for 12 years. And one of the things that I'd really like to address is how do we get the younger veterans to come to our organizations, the DAV, the American Legion, the VFW. I'm finding it's very, very difficult to generate them, to get them to want to fit into our organization and actually join in. Our average age in our chapter is 77 years of age. So that makes it very difficult when you got a 25-year-old coming in and trying to get them adapted to what we're trying to do is actually get them to come in and help them when we can, but we're not able to do that because we can't get them coming.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I appreciate you bringing this up. I think you have a very good point. We are missing the younger generation veterans from these veteran service organizations. I think it's very important that we do as much as we can to reach out to them and invite them into these organizations. They need to take the helm. They need to carry the torch into the future. Thank you.
One other thing, then I'm going to pass the mic. It's like getting into the colleges, like you're saying is it is difficult in the junior colleges or the 2-year colleges where they do have the organizations there. But getting in there, I see there's a lot of people go there and they set up their own organizations there, and they don't really connect with the other organizations. So, and I think being where you're at, and then where some of the other VA organizations are, maybe we can get something going to where we can actually create that vacuum. Let's put the vacuum together and bring the vacuum and get them to come with us, and we go with them and do things. Yeah. I think that's a good thing. Anyway.
Thank you, Ben. We're gonna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have someone else? We have just a few moments, and then we're going to start reviewing some films. But thank you very much, Ben, for starting it off.
Yes, my name is Sean Pointer. I'm the commander of DAV, Disabled American Veterans here in Pittsburgh. I like doing a lot of things, like you were bringing up as a veteran, working with other veterans to stand down, and plus Jeff Jewell and his office has helped me, Nathan, Costa, and David Stockwell with his town hall meetings, letting us know what the VA is doing to help our veterans out on the floor. The veteran, I think, is my father. He passed away 2 weeks ago, and he had the pride that I always tried to get him into the VA system, and he says, give it to somebody else. Well, it got to a point that he needed the help. And I went to Nathan's office, and I want to thank you. We got him into the system. We also got him into the VA. So he felt a sense of pride. The problem is my mom married to him for 4 years. She's having a really hard time, and she's wanting to know if there's any resources as a veteran spouse that she could reach out because she's having a hard time with the grieving.
Yeah. I appreciate you mentioning this, and we honor your father's service. And I think you're right. I think veterans of today are very reluctant because they're humble, and they're very proud of their service, and they're afraid of taking a benefit away from another family member or from another veteran. So I invite your mom to come into the County Veteran Service Office and find out.
One thing we need to make clear, and I'm sure the VA is dying to say this themselves, and that is that you're not taking away anybody else's benefit. This is something that Nathan and I deal with on a regular basis when we're dealing with veterans out in the field, is that you earned it, you get it, it's yours. It's not a zero-sum game. You get your benefits are there. You're taking nothing from anybody else. So it's important that all of our veterans understand that they need to at least get into a county veteran service office so they can get registered with the VA and find out what those benefits are, because they're yours. You earned them.
And a part of Sean's question was about services for those grieving the loss of someone who served in the military. And I would say that TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program, which was started by an incredible woman who lost her husband in a plane crash and couldn't find the help to grieve, is a safe place to turn. We have 24/7 people there available to support, and the phone number is 1-800-959-TAPS, taps.org. Your mother can call us. We can help.
So I want to invite our audience to continue in the conversation. Those watching the show can continue. I want to dive into our next part here. I'll turn it back to you, Kevin.
Sure. Welcome back for our next segment. We thought we would show movie clips as a way to get the conversation going. Questions to consider for our upcoming segment are, does Hollywood accurately portray veterans who come home from war and suffer from PTSD? How have Hollywood films depicted our veterans who come home? Our first film clip is from the film Platoon. Let's take a look.
Okay, so very intense scene, obviously portraying a night ambush in Vietnam, and I think a lot of the Vietnam veterans can probably relate to that scene. But it shows a couple of things. A young soldier is at night on watch, and the enemy sneaks up on him, and sudden chaos occurs. What are your thoughts here in terms of depicting really the stress and the difficulty that comes from having fought in combat? Luis, you served recently.
So for me, it's a little different. I mean, I wasn't a combat veteran. I was avionics in the Marine Corps. So it's a completely different experience. I mean, my first thoughts are, you know, with a lot of the films that come out, it's always that combat experience because it's what sells. Mm-hmm. It's what's sexy. It's, you know, what people want to go watch because that's what they think the military is like.
Point.
But I mean, out of the entire, you know, military population, what percentage really actually goes in combat? It's a very small percentage.
Very good point.
But that's what sells.
And then so it doesn't represent really the veteran service who served during a wartime, who supported that war, maybe stateside, or even who served during a peacetime period.
Right. I mean, for some, they may be able to relate, but again, I can't relate to that. It was not my experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terry?
For me, that was a reasonable depiction of some of the craziness that goes on in combat. Unfortunately, there are a couple of things that you cannot get across on the screen, whether it's the small screen or the big one, and that is understanding how scary it really is, that it really is life and death, that you really don't want to make a mistake, like having the safety off. Mm-hmm. You don't do that. And the other thing that doesn't come across is the large amount of boredom that led up to that moment.
Mm-hmm. You know, we got some agreement out there, it sounds like.
You know, the boredom was a constant enemy, and you were constantly in a position where you really didn't want to make a whole lot of mistakes, but you had a whole lot of time on your hands. But out there, it is incredible terror surrounded by a very significant amount of just plain boredom. Mm-hmm. But what Hollywood can't do is it cannot give you the insanity very well, although one of the movies came close to that, although it wasn't very accurate. And it cannot give you the terror. It can give you the scene, you can look at it, you can try to put yourself into it, but it cannot hand you this, here, make a mistake and you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay? That doesn't happen. So again, they're limited in the scope of what they can possibly relate to anybody who hasn't had the experience, which gets all the way back to your original question of how do you relate to people who don't share that experience.
I think speaking with, some of the combat veterans that I work with, a lot of the movies is always action. It's always action. And, a lot of the times there is a lot of boredom that's there. But, again, that doesn't sell it. You don't want to show movies like that. What are people doing when they're bored? America doesn't want to know that.
We'll get to that, actually.
Interestingly, we have a clip that really addresses that well. I want to point out something. We forgot to introduce Sam here, and Sam's actually barking in his sleep, which makes me think that sometimes veterans dream about these kind of scenes. And so, Jeff, you see a lot of that. Do you find that veterans are avoiding these types of movies because maybe that scene is not real for them, but maybe it brings up some type of real scene that occurred for them in combat? We have just a few seconds here.
Yeah, and Nathan, you bring up a good point. I mean, a big part of what we see is the avoidant behaviors. Avoiding people, places, things that might remind them. Because oftentimes they go to, it takes them to a place where they don't really want to be. And sometimes it takes years in therapy talking about this before someone's ready to really talk about it, to really expose it and find meaning in it, because that's the key. And most veterans, I believe, that we work with, they eventually find meaning in all of that craziness, all that madness, and once they figure that out, their life is much better.
Well, we're going to move on to the next clip, and I want to thank Sean and Ben who joined us from the audience. I want to invite our audience to jump in the conversation as well.
I just want to, since we're talking about Sam real briefly, one of the
He's
things that he provides for myself with PTSD and some other, and for veterans, is that they will wake us up in those nightmares. They're trained to gently get us awake because they can sense that we're having these issues. And I need to roll that back. I can't quite read it, guys.
Our next film is Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. The themes are cultural incompetence, curiosity from reporters and civilians.
My men are ready for anything. Just don't ask us to dance and we'll be all right. Ma'am.
Any trouble sleeping or readjusting to life back home?
No, ma'am.
I sleep fine.
I'm good. Sir, in the back.
What was your hardest mission?
When we lost Sergeant Bream.
Are we making a difference over there?
Absolutely, sir. America's out there producing dozens of suicidally pissed off insurgents every day.
Are we making a difference over there?
I think we are, yes. We're making a difference, definitely.
What do you do during your downtime for fun?
Masturbate.
Masturbate. All over. Please.
What do you do during your downtime for fun?
Most days we're putting in 12 to 14 hours. When we get a little kickback time, though, guys.
Well, I like to lift weights.
I play video games.
I have a plethora of board games.
Yeah, my baby girl sent us her copy of Shoots and Ladders.
Keeps us battle ready.
I like to kill my enemies and listen to the lamentation of their women. Isaac Conan the Barbarian. I just always wanted to say that.
Sir, in the back.
So, what inspired Bravo to do what it did that fateful day at El Ansicar?
Specialist Lynn was the first to recognize what was going on down there. He was also the first one to react. I think he's the appropriate one to answer your question.
To tell you the honest truth, sir, I don't remember all that much. And I saw Shroom, Sergeant Bream, being dragged away, so I wanted to get him back. I guess my training just kicked in.
Now, according to your Silver Star citation, you were in hand-to-hand combat with one of the insurgents. Is that right?
I mostly returned fire and rendered aid to Sergeant Bream.
Yeah, but you also got to engage the enemy up close. I mean, not many soldiers are given that kind of experience.
Given? I mean, it's not what I wanted to do. The guy just jumped me and we...
What was it like?
What was what like, sir?
Well, to be so close to the enemy.
It wasn't like we had that much time to get acquainted. Look, it all happened real fast, okay? It's not something I'm real proud of, but I did what I had to do.
So, as you could tell as that segment went on, the black and white part was what they were thinking, the colored part is what they actually said. So, I think it portrays very accurately that, you know, they've been given instructions on what answers are to be. They're at a halftime show, they're being interviewed by the press. How does that fit into what our experiences are when we deal with especially today's veterans that are coming back, and what they do say and what they really mean? Is there any input on that?
Well, I wonder where then can be the space where people are unscripted. And I think about how sometimes with veteran patients I saw, there was this sense of the only other people that really understand me are other veterans, which is really, it's not the case when you develop trust with somebody in a relationship. Part of the work that I did at the VA was to help veterans see their partners as battle buddies and begin to extend their tribe to those that they love and trust. And that's still the work I'm doing in suicide prevention, is helping people think about who their tribe is in a bigger sense. So I think that's an unfortunate side effect of this scripting that veterans sort of can be placed into and stay in.
But from experience, it's a very healthy way to look at it, because if we can't rely on the ones that are closest to us, because those are the ones we hurt the easiest also, because we're not dealing with what we should be dealing with.
And I think one of the most important things is they need to be developing those relationships that Shauna is talking about if they don't have them. You know, I have to say that my clients that don't have a loving, supporting relationship or somebody they can confide in outside the vet center or outside of the therapy we do, they tend to fail. And so one of the things that we do is we look to make those connections. And at the vet centers, and I know Shauna, and I know at a lot of the places with the VA now, it's not just about the veteran, it's about the family. Certainly is at the vet centers. I mean, the families are always an important part of it. And we want to include them in on the discussion at some point, and make sure that they're there and they understand that, you know, veterans sometimes look at the world and they feel it's normal, but other people look at them and think they're abnormal. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we bridge that gap?
And partly just for the advocacy part of it, because sometimes, you know, it's hard to ask for help. But yet your significant other, your spouse, your sister, I mean, I run into at these Yellow Ribbons, brothers and sisters there with their, and they're the ones asking the questions, or mothers and fathers, and I think it's important to have that relationship and somebody else that can advocate on your behalf, if nothing else.
I want to point out one thing that I noticed. Did I cut someone off? I want to point out one thing is this unit, they have the uniforms on. It's Big Red 1, right? You can see the patch, and you can tell they just got back home from combat.
Yeah, we see
and you see, there you go, Murph. There you go. Murph's Big Red 1. You see how relaxed they are? They seem very relaxed to me. They seem very calm and very comfortable with themselves, and I think it's because they have each other still. I think they're at a point where they haven't yet separated from each other. So they haven't really started to think about things because they can still joke around with each other and be pretty lighthearted about the circumstances of their service. And it's not until someone asks the very difficult question do they start to think, whoa, I have to start thinking about what it was like to be hand-to-hand with the enemy. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Go ahead, David.
You know, I just wanted to say, in the VA healthcare system, one of the things that's most effective is having veterans partner with other veterans in their healthcare. If you can surround yourself with a group of diabetics that are all veterans together, and they already have that camaraderie, they already have that understanding, now they're going to battle with their chronic disease that they're all working on together. So whether it's a group to talk about PTSD, it's managing weight loss through the MOVE program, or it's a group of diabetics trying to figure out how to make it all work together. The power of veterans together really is an important thing to take hold of.
You just need to recreate what was happening
That
there.
camaraderie.
Naturally, that came, right.
Yeah, one of the things that segment pointed out to me is the near total disconnect between people who've had the combat experience and people who haven't.
Right.
If you even understood what you didn't understand, you wouldn't ask some of the stupid questions that were being asked by the interviewers. You just wouldn't do it. And what it really points out is the incredible importance that was pointed out earlier by other speakers of having veterans in the system helping provide what those veterans who are coming in for help really need.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why people join organizations like ours.
Wendy, I want to get to you, and then I know Laura, but I want to prep our team. I want to show the next two clips back to back, so if we can get those next two clips to play together, then we'll discuss those for the sake of time. So Wendy and Laura?
I was just going to say that the military in and of itself is designed to build that camaraderie, and that it doesn't matter how long you were in the service, how long you've been out. There's a reason that our veterans want to go to the medical centers, not just for health care, but it's also to be with their fellow buddies. Our veterans also go on to military installations to be with each other. I think it's very apparent to me that one of the best places for VA to be is one, together, but also with our military communities. That's where our veterans want to be, and it's that sense of camaraderie. I'm very fortunate I can still go on to military installations, and every time I go onto a military installation, I feel like I'm at home. That's just something that's built into the culture that's what makes our veterans unique. That's what makes our mission unique. That is not something that can ever be taken away. And the more that veterans can be with one another, it is a comfort, and there's that camaraderie. And that's exactly where we want to be, so we can continue to serve our veterans, their families, and our service members. And somebody asked earlier, somebody asked from the DAV chapter about how we can bring the younger generation into the service organizations. Well, I would just offer the suggestion that relationships with our current active reserve and guard units is where we can start building that relationship, because when we go into the military, we don't know what we don't know. We're going into basic training, we're going in to learn our MOS or our tech school or whatever it is our job is supposed to be, and we're focused on that mission. We can build that gap and build that bridge, I should say, at that level while they're in service. And that's maybe the younger generation, as they're transitioning out, will join some of these service organizations. And also it's a way for us in the VA to educate them early on in their service.
Yeah, we have National Guard right here in Pittsburgh. Right. And oftentimes we drive right by their Guard unit and forget that they put the uniform on every day.
And those are the ones, obviously there's a difference between the active duty, reserve, and Guard. And part of the reserve and Guard is that when they deploy and come back, they are technically veterans and can apply for benefits, where active duty generally have to wait until the uniform comes up.
Until being discharged.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
A question from the audience.
Another question, just in agreement of everything I'm hearing, and that there is I don't know if you're aware, very large auxiliary women veterans groups in the VA that have been so supportive and wonderful to be involved with other women. It's women vets, and we go on equine therapy, we have yoga therapy together, we have painting, you name it. It's just been great, and I love giving back now. My mission is giving back since I've retired to other veterans, so Honor Guard is a great place to go. Being at the Concord Vet Center with you, Jeff, and everybody there has been marvelous. I love it. I love the Guitar for Vets program, and it's helped me settle down some of my anxieties and just feel great. It's just
really,
been wonderful.
What exactly David was talking
Exactly.
about. You're demonstrating for us some of the way that this work's being done in the community. Thank you so much.
Beyond belief. Even the classes, they have back care classes, and PTSD goes on and on and on. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love my VA.
All right. We love the VA too. Thank you so much. Real quickly, sir, and then we're going to show 2 films back to back.
Sure, thank you. Octavia Scott, Director of Employment and Training with Swords to Plowshares. I do a lot of work around employing post 9/11 veterans in the civilian sector. I think you guys brought up a couple valid points about there's a disconnect in culture with veterans. How do we get employers to see the value in veterans?
Yeah, very difficult. I think the employers often miss the fact that not everyone in the military is an infantry member. That many of the people in the military are filling HR jobs, supply jobs and logistics jobs, doctors and nurses that can go to work directly for the VA, people in administrative roles that can go directly to work for the VA regional office. I think we need to look beyond the infantrymen, right, Luis, and look beyond that combat role.
Veterans tend to show up on time.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of good reasons.
They're also our team players.
So we got about 2 or 3 seconds here.
Kind of bring up the vocational rehabilitation and employment program that we have in VBA.
Right.
That is something that helps our transitioning, or our veterans, as they go through the program to gain new employment. And we work with all private and public agencies and organizations, and that's one way to help make that connection for our veterans.
It's very important that we do so.
Yep.
We have to.
All right, we have 2 more clips to show you. We're going to show them back to back here. The first one is "Thank You for Your Service," and the second one is Megan Levy. Please enjoy these clips.
I thought you were fine. You're lying to me. I found your VA questionnaire. Everything's a lie. You're sick, and I can't do anything if you don't talk to me, Adam.
I have to be sick or I can't get my benefits.
So you don't want to die? It was multiple choice, and you said you wanted to die. Was that a lie? Adam.
I don't know.
Rex would be worth it.
You know what you gotta do? Then
They won't talk to me. I have abandoned him. I
you
left.
gotta find a way. There are a few people in life, not many, that you gotta find a way for. If you needed something, I would do whatever it took. Not because I'm any kind of great dad, but because how I love you is stronger than what I'm not. I want you to be a person who shows up for work, for your friends' funerals, for life.
I've tried. I failed.
So fail again. And just keep failing until they're tossing dirt on your corpse. Baby, all you gotta do is fight. And you know how to fight.
Okay, so just to summarize what we just watched, it was a young veteran and his wife, and you can see he's on the edge of the bed, and she obviously is very angry or exhausted by the process of trying to help understand what he's going through. And then the second clip, Megan Levy in that film has been separated from her service, not her service dog, her working dog. She was in Afghanistan and they were both injured, and she struggles now as a veteran to reconnect with her dog and to continue moving on despite these failures. And her father is giving her encouragement. You know how to fight. You've been trained how to fight. Keep fighting until they bury you. So one thing was very profound in there is kind of the conflict of being injured and being sick and not knowing how injured or sick you are to really articulate to someone so they can help you. In fact, in one of the segments he says, I have to be sick, otherwise I won't get my VA benefits. So how do you guys think that depicts the veteran? What, in terms of myths and realities?
To me, both of those clips are about the power of attachments to save life in a sense, because it's about her attachment with her service dog or her attachment with her husband. She's reaching out to him, angry because that's what people do when they can't reach someone that they're fearful of losing. I want to let others weigh in, but that's what I get from those.
Yeah. In both situations, they really want to help the veteran, but the veteran really struggles to understand their own circumstances to allow anyone else to help them, right?
I think it's a very real struggle. I think a lot of veterans that come to the VA are battling that. Be strong. We're here to help serve those who've served, and how does that all mesh together? Getting unplugged from 220-volt high energy stress into regular life, and how do all those transitions and wiring work? It's very, very difficult to do. And so often veterans need help, but they don't know that they need help, or they don't know how to ask for help. And that's how the broader environment really can participate in trying to encourage that.
And they're concerned about, if I get better, do I lose my benefits, right? Do I get disenrolled from the VA healthcare system, which we know is absolutely not true. They'll continue to get good care, and showing signs of improvement is okay. That's what we want for our veterans. So unfortunately, we're out of time. I really enjoyed that segment of today's show. And please enjoy this next video as we honor those who lost their lives and friends at Pearl Harbor.
I just want Ted Clements and all the rest of you people who were involved in that beacon restoration to know what it means to me. When they lifted that beacon up off the top of that building, to me, it was like they were lifting our sunken shipmates up off the bottom of the harbor to be forever honored and remembered. And that beacon will help us do that. To me, it feels like it gives me a way to reach back across the years and connect once again with over 2,400 of my sunken shipmates and fallen comrades.
Throughout the war, one great battle cry could be heard by American friends and foes alike. Remember Pearl Harbor. Have you heard that before a couple of times? Remember Pearl Harbor.
Remember Pearl Harbor as we go to meet the foe. Just remember Pearl Harbor as we did the Alamo. We shall always remember how they died for liberty. Just remember Pearl Harbor and go on to victory.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. Tonight we are exploring how veterans are portrayed in Hollywood and what it means to be a veteran in society today. Now we turn to a segment titled, If You Really Knew Me. This segment was inspired by the idea that coming home after military service requires more than just formal resources, but the empathetic ear of a society who can bear witness to the experiences of returning vets. For this segment, we are asking veterans in our audience to come up on stage and finish the sentence, if you really knew me. Okay, so we'll do this. Each veteran will have about 30 seconds. I can see people already lining up, which is great. And some people are making their way over. We only have about 5 minutes, so I will take the microphone away if we need to pass it on to everyone else. And please keep in mind, no applause, no thank you, just quiet, empathetic listening. Thank you.
If you really knew me, you would know just how terrified and scared I was in Iraq as an infantry Marine.
If you really knew me, you'd know that I dedicated 10 years of my life serving in the United States Army. In the 7 years that I've been home, I spent about 99% of my time alone because it's hard to find people I can relate to in the civilian population. It's hard to find people that display qualities of loyalty and integrity. The same qualities that people I served with served and exhibited on a day-to-day basis.
If you really knew me, you'd know that since coming back from Iraq and actually getting out of the Marine Corps, I feel guilty on a regular basis for only having one tour in Iraq and not going back with my unit on another deployment, and watching while I was safe at home watching on TV the IEDs that were killing and maiming my fellow service men and women.
If you really knew me, you'd know that I get along better with other veterans because since coming back from Iraq, I see America as a self-centered society and a fragmented society that we don't have connection unless there's a catastrophe.
If you really knew me, you'd know that I overcome the odds and serve my country.
If you really knew me, sometimes I give off a cold vibe, but I'm really a loving and compassionate person.
If you really knew me, you'd know that I'm a very passionate veteran advocate, and one of the things I like to inspire other veterans to do is to become a veteran advocate yourself, because we could use the help.
If you really knew me, you'd know that I'm finally proud to be a veteran and give back to other veterans.
We hope you have enjoyed our show tonight. Before we go, we want to direct you to a few resources. Also, please visit our website for a full list of events happening in the community at contracostatv.org/Veterans Voices. The VA Northern California Healthcare System is an integrated healthcare delivery system offering a comprehensive array of medical, surgical, rehabilitation, mental health, and extended care to veterans in Northern California. The health system is comprised of a medical center in Sacramento, a rehabilitation and extended care facility in Martinez, and 7 outpatient clinics. Please visit northerncalifornia.va.gov to learn more. You can also contact the VA Oakland Regional Benefit Office located at 1301 Clay Street, North Tower, Oakland, or by calling 800-827-1000. The Concord Vet Center welcomes home war veterans with honor by providing quality readjustment counseling in a caring manner. Vet centers understand and appreciate veterans' war experiences while assisting them and their family members toward a successful post-war adjustment in or near their community. Please call 925-680-4526 to learn more or to schedule an appointment. The Contra Costa County Veteran Service Office provides assistance to the men and women who have served in the armed forces of America, their dependents and survivors, and the general public in obtaining benefits from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Defense, and the California Department of Veterans Affairs, and the other programs for veterans and their families. Please call 925-313-1481 to learn more.
Tonight, we honor the service of Army veteran Sergeant First Class Diedrich Waterford by displaying his shadow box on our set. Diedrich is a combat veteran of the Gulf War, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. He served with the 3rd ID, 101st Airborne, and the Army Test and Evaluation Command. We all have a story to tell. Do you want to tell yours? If so, we'd love to hear from you and possibly have you as a guest for our A Veterans Voice segment or as a guest on our show. Please reach out to us and tell us more about yourself. Please join us in January as we bring together veteran service organizations to discuss collaboration and leadership within the VSO community. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. This is Veterans Voices of Contra Costa County signing off, wishing you all a relaxing evening. Before I continue, I see we have some time. I want to thank the CCTV crew, the production crew, who put in countless hours to put together tonight's show. I want to thank all of our dynamic guests. I want to thank our audience. This is the largest live audience we've ever had, so thank you so much for being here.
And also we'd like to thank California Theater for allowing us to use this wonderful facility and being able to bring you all in. And it's been a very enjoyable evening with a lot of great information that's been disseminated.
And for all the veterans out there watching tonight, hua and hoorah. Good night.
Don't anybody get off the stage because we didn't make